if they're going to have a democratic government and they want to have freedom, they have to be educated. Freedom does not occur in ignorance. Ignorant people are easily led around. Ignorant people are easily led to emotional outbursts, the need to make people wrong so they can be right. Look at what's going on in the world. There's no more attempt. I shouldn't say no more attempt, but back when I was a much younger man, opposing sides would talk to each other and try to flesh out ideas and try to hear each other's point of view. That's not going on anymore. You know, I'm a Kahuna priest, and I can share with you that I really see the Bible as a blueprint for living, even though I'm a Kahuna. And what does God tell us in the Bible? Of course, obvious things like you don't commit murder, you don't steal, you don't commit adultery, which is basically breaking trust with somebody who's come to rely upon you to build a family. All that stuff is evil. But what about thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor? That's become a rule of thumb now in politics, where one side's constantly misrepresenting the views of the other side in order to gain power. That's evil. And yet, does anybody notice that? It's become so commonplace in America today that everybody does it, and they think that it's okay. Bribing politicians through lobbyists used to be called bribes. Today, it's doing business. You know, I don't know what you think about Biden and his son and the corruption that appears to be involved with all of that. But the point of the matter is that when you're in a position of public service, you don't use that position for your own private gain. If you want to have a strong government, you can't do that. So now what do we have in our country? The powers that be have been so corrupt, the system of justice has been so perverted that a whole bunch of people out there don't support it. They don't respect it. They don't respect the government. They don't respect the police. Why? Because these things have not been operated as the respectful institutions that they once were, where people that formed the leadership of those institutions were people who had ethical values. That's gone. So you see these congressmen deliberately misstating facts in Congress, trying to support people to move to their side of the aisle. And the rest of the population, those who support them cheer it, and those who don't support it condemn it. And what is there now? There's division. Who respects the process? Nobody. That's why we can't find any ability to compromise on anything. Nobody respects the process because it's so routinely abused. Why do so many people not bother to go out and vote? Because it's very clear to a whole lot of us that your vote doesn't really matter. Who the billionaires want to be president to further their agenda is who will be president. And again, it starts with money. When it takes $1 billion to become president of the United States, who's that president going to be representing? Is it going to be you that can afford to send in $10, or George Soros, who just put another $130 million into the pot of the Democrats? So those are the two Americas. The America that's founded on the culture of corruption, where people have used the prosperity that our system of values has produced for their own personal gain. And then there's the America that I would die for, which are those values that we've been talking about. We get our rights from God. We don't have a right to make a claim on anybody else's income. The income tax is another form of slavery. It just is. When you take from somebody who's earned it to give it to somebody who hasn't earned it, that's called slavery. And that's why it doesn't work. And another form of slavery that the government routinely engages in now is the slavery that is inflation. Inflation is it's a simple thing. I print money that benefits me at your expense. I increase my purchasing power and you decrease yours by the same amount. That's all inflation is. It's not because greedy businessmen are gouging the public. That can't cause inflation. Inflation is caused by an imbalance between the money supply and the productivity of goods and services. But the government doesn't want you to know that. They'd rather blame it on greedy businesses, greedy corporations, somebody else. Republicans who give greedy corporations big tax benefits. Well, let me tell you something. Corporations don't pay tax. No corporation in the world has ever paid a nickel in tax, ever. Surprised? It's true. Corporations don't pay tax. Corporations pass on any taxes that they get as a business expense. Who pays the tax are the consumer of their products or services. The consumer pays the tax. And the inflation tax is the most cruel of all. I don't know how many go out there and are concerned about the price of your multi-million-dollar yacht going up by 5% this year over last. But there are a whole lot of people out there that go into the grocery store and they find out when something that you need to eat costs you double that it did 3 months ago. If it's available, that hurts, especially if you're living on a fixed income. If you're a woman who's trying to support 3 kids in the household as a single mom. If you're an older person trying to live on Social Security. Inflation hurts those people. But do you think the billionaires care about that? No, they don't care about that. They want to make sure that all these billions are available and get sent to Ukraine. Why? What did Ukraine do with that besides the part that they put away into their own little personal bank accounts? A lot of it is spent on buying weapons from Lockheed Martin and Raytheon. And who builds the bombs? Who builds the airplanes? Who builds the guns? Who builds the missiles? And all of that money goes back to these people running those big corporations that go into their pension plans and their bonuses. How much of a bonus did their employees get? Guarantee it wasn't like that. Who has the political power? The owners of these operations. So wake up. You got to own your rights. You got to realize where the power comes from, and you got to realize there's lots more of us than there are of them. Now, the corruption has become so complete at so many areas in this country that I don't really see a way out of it. I think what's going to happen is we're either going to have a civil war or a complete collapse of the economy, or both. And when that time comes, there's going to be a lot of people in a lot of pain, and there's going to be a lot of people that are going to sober up real fast. And there's going to be a lot of other people who are going to be dead. And their family's gone, their business is gone. And that's just the truth of it. So my suggestion is that if you don't want to be in as difficult a position as that promises to be, then number one, become a member of a family that holds those original values dear. Our Eagle's Nest family does that. Many of you belong to churches, and your churches do that. Get involved with those organizations. Contribute to them. Make them strong. If you want to be able to have the best chance of survival, you got to get back to those values that made us strong to begin with. There is a God that is the all that is. And all beings are a part of that God, and the earth is a part of the God. That's the reason you want to be environmentally responsible. And oh, by the way, who's most responsible? The farmer living on the land trying to practice regenerative agriculture? Or these big corporate farms that will spray glyphosate and every other kind of chemical on the land if it will increase their yield or productivity by a marginal amount, and in the process destroy the land. The small guy is the guy who takes care of this world. That's the guy you want to support. The next one, we're going to talk about the meat industry. And the meat industry is in a hell of a mess right now. There was a day when you could buy really high quality meat almost anywhere. There are lots of little butcher shops around. I lived in a little town, Salida, Colorado, that had 5,000 people. And that little town had 3 independent butcher shops. Today there's 1 left. Today, most of the beef are coming out of a feedlot. They're being thrown, from the time they're slaughtered to the time they're put into a package is a matter of hours. The package contains all kinds of pathogens which breed inside of that package. As soon as you open it up, it's filled with pathogens. The meat itself is contaminated with pesticides and glyphosate from the grains that they've been fed at a feedlot. Many of them have had course after course of antibiotics. That never used to happen when the small farmer was involved in producing the meat. Never used to happen. There's one guy today, Mike Caligrate, that we'll talk about in the next one, who's running one of the only vertically integrated cattle operations that I'm aware of in the country today. And his meat is fantastic. Fantastic for you, extremely delicious, extremely healthy to eat. But he raises them. He starts as a cow-calf operation in Kansas. And then when they feed him out, they feed him on dryland barley and non-GMO corn, never been sprayed with a pesticide. And then when it's time to slaughter, they don't round them up, put them in a trailer, or put them into some kind of a gate where they can see the one in front of them being killed. You know, the one behind sees the one in front being killed. They don't do that. The cattle are kept calm and quiet. And when they're slaughtered, they're hung and they're dry aged for 2 to 3 weeks. And then the carcasses are transported from the farm back to Colorado Springs, where they're processed in a plant there. And not only that, but the meat is half Wagyu and half Black Angus. And the Wagyu part makes them have omega-3 fatty acids, which are extremely delicious and healthy to eat. Do you think anybody like that would have started an operation like that if they were big agra? So this has all got to change. It's not sustainable. And it will change. The only question is, how are you going to fare when the change happens? And it probably won't happen as slowly as it took them to get here. There's going to be some kind of a crisis, some kind of a problem, and it'll change overnight. And if you don't have the ability to understand a different way to go and how to take care of yourself, life is going to be pretty tough for you. So honor the American values and criticize those people who would abuse those values for personal profit or personal gain. And that's my message for you today. Again, the next one we'll talk about the meat industry because diet is important. A carnivore diet is by far the best diet you can eat, but the problem is coming up with quality meat. And we'll show you how to do that. So aloha, and bless our world, and bless you in it. And let's hope that our children can grow up in a better world than this one's shaping up to be. Aloha.